Namaskar, and I start with a greeting. What a pleasure it was to be here today when you're completing 90 years. Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Saxena, Secretary, Department of Financial Services, Mr. Nagaraju, distinguished guests, all members and staff, officers of Bank of Maharashtra, I commend you for these 90 glorious years of service to the banking sector. You have achieved this milestone passing through various stages, and those have been beautifully explained by both the compare as she ran the program through and also the Secretary, Department of Financial Services. But it is a history which is so aligned with India's freedom movement and also the growth of banking sector in India. So I will briefly mark the milestones that you have covered over the years, just for us to recapitulate. So 1934-35 is when you establish yourself, and as rightly the Secretary paid respects and homage to the founders, visionary founders. Pune in that sense has had so much of contribution to India's history. It stands out for several things. The thought leadership that Pune provides. It's always been a source of inspiration for newer, leadership-infused thought which guided our freedom movement and which also guided, taking the case of Bank of Maharashtra, the banking revolution that got built up in the private sector. And the visionary leaders were Professor V.G. Kale, who was also incidentally a member of Indian Tariff Board, and he was a known educationalist. He also is now known, not just now, but has been for some time known for the contribution that he's made in setting up this bank. Shri D.K. Sathe, businessman and prominent social worker of this area, and Shri B.M. Gupte, chairman of the Pune Central Cooperative Bank Limited, the three of whom came together to form this, what at that time would have been a small effort towards setting up a bank, today completes 90 proud years. In 1944, you attained the status of a scheduled bank. And in 46, outside of Maharashtra, you set up a branch in Hubli, in what is today Karnataka. And in 58, you were listed in Bombay Stock Exchange. Listing happened in 1958. And in 1969, Bank of Maharashtra was nationalized along with 13 other banks. And since then, a nationalized scheduled bank is Maharashtra, Bank of Maharashtra. So the Bank of Maharashtra also has 3 RRBs, and these RRBs today have penetrated into the rural hinterland and contribute to the access to bank in those difficult areas where large banks find it difficult to establish themselves. And the Grameen Bank, Marathwada Grameen Bank, which is headquartered in Nanded, Aurangabad Jalna Grameen Bank, and Thane Grameen Bank. So you have 3 RRBs. So you actually are a good, typical public sector bank today with features governing a public sector bank where inclusivity was looked at as a virtue and is continuing to be a virtue. Inclusivity, which you have defined through the team of all women volleyball persons who have now become part of the bank, but inclusivity in the sense of financial inclusivity to areas which were otherwise difficult to be accessed. So today, marking the 90th Foundation Day, I'm extremely happy to be here in this glorious city of Pune with its rich history, culture, music, Sanskrit, banking, and what more can you add to Pune? It's one of those rich, very well endowed cities. Banking is also one feather in its cap. Particularly Bank of Maharashtra's performance in the last few years, last decade I would say, has been exceptional in the way in which Secretary, Department of Financial Services gave out the data. It is obvious that in many indicators, you're performing much above the expected levels. Again, this is something which is worth recalling and capturing for all of us to consciously look at it. So the gross NPA in Bank of Maharashtra as of 31st March 2024 stood at 1.88%. Average of all the public sector bank is 3.47. I seek the pardon of other bank officials who are seated in the audience that I compare it like this, but it is, and I'm sure the Secretary will agree with me, it is said with an intention of healthy competition. It is not beyond that, but if Bank of Maharashtra could achieve it, I'm sure the rest of the banks can also achieve it. If I'm not aware, they've already achieved it very well. But I think it's a record worth recalling when you're celebrating your 90th Foundation Day. Net NPAs declined of Bank of Maharashtra, net NPAs declined to 0.2%. Average of PSBs, average of all the PSBs is 0.76%. You know, Chairman, Managing Director, Mr. Saxena, I would require the compare, the lady who's running the program so smoothly and nicely, to give them a little, signal from Piche to say, it's about your bank that I'm talking, and you're doing well. Provision coverage ratio, Bank of Maharashtra, 98.34%. Average of all public sector banks is 93%. Net profits for the year. Net profits for the year. I'm glad the media is here. They should hear the performance of our public sector banks, and being here on the 90th Foundation Day, the performance of Bank of Maharashtra. We need the media to talk about our success stories. The work which our tireless banking staff are doing for the success of the bank, and which has a direct impact on our economy, as a result of which the economy also attains a certain level of buoyancy. And therefore, I recall each one of these points in a sort of taunting way, because if you perform, today you clap and you have applauses, but you have to remain there and perform better. That's a bigger challenge. So the net profits for the year, which ended 31st March 2024, increased by nearly 56% to 4,055 crores year on year. Total business grew by 16% year on year, and it has touched 4.74 lakh crores. Total deposits, and this is very important indicator for me, you need to gather deposits. Total deposits increased by over 15% year on year to 2,70,747 crores. RAM, as we call it, retail, agri, and MSME businesses. Retail, agri, and MSME businesses grew 24.21%. These are all year-on-year numbers. Retail advances grew by 19.10% to 51,727 crores. MSME advances grew by 26.69% year-on-year basis, and it has touched 42,117 crores. So every member of the bank should take pride in this success. And Bank of Maharashtra continues to forge ahead toward an even brighter future. I wish them all the very best on this 90th Foundation Day. And it is only right, again, I don't know if it has happened because you're calling the finance minister after the July budget, but it's one pleasant surprise for me that what was announced in the budget for all banks to follow, Bank of Maharashtra, and I would like to believe, since I'm being called, fulfilled one of the budget announcements in setting up an instrument of assessing MSMEs based on their cash flow and not on other considerations. Because MSMEs have a unique feature in India, and it is only the cash flows and the business cycle which explains how they would require bank assistance. You have taken that budget announcement seriously and come up with also a booklet which you made me release